I think about my time when I was a PhD student and then a postdoc. I got the impression from the university, and this is not limited to speech or issues about political discrimination. I always got the impression that these people love bureaucracy, and they really have a passion for it. So you take something that has no connection to free speech or political bias. When you want to do a survey, if you just want to ask people something, there is no organization in the world that puts more restrictions on you than a university. If you're working for like the New York Times, you can run a poll where you can just call anyone you want, talk to anyone you want, and ask them who did you vote for president, or who are you going to vote for this, or what do you think of that? For any corporation, there's no regulation. You could be a private researcher, you could do whatever you want. But if you're affiliated with the university, there's something called the IRB. And that means you have to go through a days-long process. And this is not for doing human experimentation. Like this is not for brain surgery. It's like if you just want to do like a poll that Pew Research would do or any other group would do, you have to go through this. And they put you through training. And the training is talking about like the Tuskegee experiment. And they're going into like the Holocaust. And it's very, it's just very strange stuff. And they put you through this. And there's not like an ideological, like this is a discrimination against conservatives or something like that. And nobody forced this on them. It just seems that the university has become a place where risk-averse people who don't understand cost-benefit analysis, who just love shoveling around paperwork and bureaucracy, this is just where they find themselves. And is just sort of a byproduct of that. Does that make sense to you?
It does totally make sense. And I'm thinking, but I think, the university administration is always trying to push worst case scenarios and caution. I mean, I do think the academics will push back in committee a little bit, on red tape and form filling and too much. Well, it depends. Now, but then on the other hand, I do think there is an ideological component to, for example, ethics committees. You will get fundamentalists who take this extremely sort of touchy-feely approach to research subjects. You always have to obtain consent. And the psychology department had a big row with the research committee, which was trying to get them to get all their respondents to give their consent on experiments where they're being manipulated. But that's the point of psychology. I mean, you're not going to do psychology without, manipulation and deception. And yet this is somehow seen as an ethics violation. I mean, these people really, most of them haven't done any proper research in their lives, but they get a hold of a position on the ethics committee and they can more or less abuse that power. And also, by the way, the ethics committees can serve as entry points for agitators, for example, who want to try and derail people's research by filing a complaint. They can try and tie you up. And those are very often ideological. And I've heard from a number of people, and even the odd comment in the survey turned up that the ethics committee is a pressure point that can be used for political discrimination to block.
Unquestionably, yeah. But just the setup of an ethics committee to do simple survey work, that originally is not ideological, or it's not ideological in the sense of right.
Well, safetyism. You could say safetyism is part of a kind of concept creep, which is part of a sort of therapeutic.
Well, I don't like that safetyism, because this is a Jonathan Haidt argument, because I was at the University of Chicago Law School, which is in the middle of a very crime-prone neighborhood. And every few years or so, somebody would get shot right outside the university, just walking a block or so outside of the university. And you couldn't walk in broad daylight, like 3 blocks down south of the University of Chicago Law School. The law school is at the edge of the university. So the university itself has its own private security. And when people would get shot or mugged, there was no demand for more safety. I mean, people just sort of brushed that off. And I was thinking, wait a minute, if this ideology is about safety and people, just really like being afraid of risk and having these fears, I think that would create a bigger reaction, but it tends not to.
Well, it depends though. You look at anything around mental health and around,
but it has to be ideological. It has to be a crime by like a police officer, or it has to be a racist.
Right.
It's like so very narrowly constrained by ideology.
Well, I was going to say that the racial dimension to what you're talking about might have constrained, whereas if it was sort of, let's say, white rednecks out in the South Side, doing
Oh, it would
this.
be, yeah, they would
Yeah,
care.
you
Yeah.
might get a different approach, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. So you do, I mean, you do have this, yeah, you do have the safety. I guess I was disagreeing with you, and I was saying it's not safetyism, but originally I was saying it was safetyism because the just setting up the IRB the way it's set up is itself a is itself divorced from sort of these racial concerns or these other
Yeah,
moral
yeah, that's right.
political
Yeah.
political things.